Hi everybody, we're the Berneckers, Bill, Luke, and Renee, and we were asked to this week during the virtual walk for EB to share Nate's story. Nate is our son, who was born in 2016 in February. He was actually born on mine and Bill's anniversary, and he was born healthy. We were excited about that because this guy was born about 2 months early, which was really, really scary. And when Nate was born in 2016, he was healthy. We noticed a couple of things when he was born. It kind of had like a bumpy ear, and he was missing a couple of fingernails. But other than that, he was healthy. And then just before we even left the hospital, we saw a couple of little tiny blisters on him that the doctors were worried about and wanted to check out. And over the next couple of days, it got worse and worse when he was in the NICU. But the doctors thought at first that he had something called pemphigoid, because I actually had it when I was pregnant with Luke, and it can, I guess that in rare occasions it can transfer to the baby during birth and stuff. So it took a while for us to figure out that wasn't what it was, because for so long the doctors were operating on the thought that that's what it was, and it was going to get better and better. So I guess it was right around when Nate was 5 months old or so, 4 or 5 months old, that we found out that he actually had junctional epidermolysis bullosa, severe junctional epidermolysis bullosa.
Yeah, so when we got that call from Cincinnati Children's, they did the biopsy when the pemphigoid didn't clear up like they thought it would. So they did do a biopsy, and the results came back, and Dr. Lucky from Cincinnati Children's contacted us and said he's got EB. And then we were later found out that not only did he have EB, he had the worst as far as survivability rate of the EBs. He had junctional epidermolysis bullosa and Hurwitz is what it's called then. So the average lifespan for babies born with that, I think, was 5 months, something along them lines, and he was already at the 5-month mark. Probably because he was being treated for the pemphigoid with a high dose of steroids to clear the blisters and other treatments. He probably extended himself longer than most babies do that are born with that same thing. So once the EB was diagnosed, and kind of leading up to this, so Nate required bandages pretty much from head to toe, all the way from his ankles all the way up to up his legs, around his diaper area, around his torso, the back of his head, the back of his ears. Every picture you see of Nate has a hat on. That's pretty much what we use to help us hold the bandages to his ears and also to protect his head from rubbing. Basically anywhere he rubbed, whether it was a diaper, his skin on the side of a thing, would cause a blister. And some blisters healed better than others. There was some like the back of his calves that never healed. Then there was some like on his arms that just never healed. Then there was others that did heal. His face off and on would get better and go worse depending on what treatments they were using. So they would use, not only was he on steroids, he had gentamicin, bacitracin, pretty much anything topical you can think of was being used. Meanwhile, the wraps were a Mepilex wrap. The other thing you have to worry about with EB kids, especially the ones in Nate's condition, was you worry about infection. So a lot of stuff we used honey, we used silver, a lot of things to help kind of draw out the wounds and keep them sanitized as much as possible. That sanitization also included saltwater baths and vinegar, or bleach and salt water, excuse me. So we did a lot of saltwater baths. Had to go to a local pool company and get a big bag of pool salt to be able to give him his baths. The baths were probably the most brutal thing. Take about 2 hours, pretty easy for a little baby. That's quite a bit, but we would have to basically towel soak him with salt water, and then after he was done, after we dried him off, usually by then he was pretty passed out from probably the pain he was in during the bath. We would try our best to wrap him head to toe. We would have probably go through a whole box of Mepilex. If you've never seen the Mepilex, it's got an adhesive side, and then we would put the Mepilex on. It's like a soft sponge pad, and then you would wrap it with this gauze pad. They have different sizes that come in tubes. So some would be sized to go all the way around an arm, some would go around the leg, and then others you would just have to cut and try to get all the way around, like say his torso. So we do the bath, we do the bandage changes. By then he was pretty knocked out. We kind of got in a rhythm with that though. The next challenge, actually this happened kind of in the transition from what we thought was pemphigoid to EB, and that was the feeding. So Nate was not eating as much as he should have. And he was having a lot of issues getting the amount of nutrition and calories that he needed. So, and you talk about stressing out about down to the ounce of how much a baby is eating was pretty nerve-wracking for probably about 2 months. We were in that OODA loop where we were texting back and forth on how many ounces Nate ate at lunch. Ultimately, and this is right about the time that, like I said, this was just a little after we found out he had EB, he got a G-tube installed, which allowed us to feed Nate the calories he needed to be able to continue to fight his battle. The G-tube was a lifesaver as far as the food intake goes, but again, now you're introducing another area you have to be stressed about as far as wound care and seepage and keeping the tube clean and all the other things that a lot of EB families know about as far as the challenges with the G-tube. Shortly after that, we were then discussed with Cincinnati Children's about potential for a bone marrow procedure where it would allow, it's something that the University of Minnesota has been doing. It would allow someone that matched basically their genes to translate in and potentially help heal the broken genes that were in Nate. University of Minnesota's had some success in it. Now with Nate's version of EB, they've had no success. So we knew that we were kind of going uphill on this one, but if it meant extending his life and potentially making him last longer for a potential cure or something to treat it better, then we decided to pursue that option. So after consultation, after we got the green light to go up to Minnesota, we packed up our vehicles, packed up our house, what we had left. I was transitioning out of the Air Force, and we moved up to Minnesota with the plan of living in Ronald McDonald House for the amount of time. They said it's up to 6-7 months that we'd be up there in Minnesota. Luke was a perfect match for a donor, which is fairly rare. At least that's what they made it sound like. So he was dead on. So Luke was getting workup while at the same time Nate was going to be getting workup. Even getting up to Minnesota though with a baby with EB was a challenge. That's a couple-day drive, and then also right before we left, Nate had a corneal abrasion, so we were worried about his eye and what that meant. That's another common thing that kids with EB get. And so when we got up there to Minnesota, actually Nate's stuff started to clear up a little bit on his eyes. We were there for 2 days. My brother John helped drive us up there and get us situated. But then we noticed that Nate was having trouble taking in food and was kind of gurgly, I guess is the right word, on when he did take the food. So when we went in for the third day of the workup, Nate, he went into cardiac arrest, and they were able to, after, was it code blue they do at the hospital where they all come running in and they do all their life-saving stuff. They did that on Nate, got him somewhat stable, but got him down into the ICU. He was more or less on life support at that point. They were pretty worried about, at this point, skin was no longer an issue. They had to do the paddles and stuff, so the skin was, that was going to be a battle for another day. But while we were down there, and this is probably a good 10 hours later, Nate went into cardiac arrest again, and this time it was unrecoverable. So he wasn't able to make it through that second cardiac arrest. So our family again, like they always do, kind of came to the rescue. A bunch of them got money together, got a bunch of our family members up to Minnesota, got us packed up, and moved us all back down to Ohio after a couple of days up there of getting everything situated. And then we went from there. So later on we found out that in talking with the doctors up there in Minnesota, with those babies, especially with junctional epidermolysis bullosa, everything kind of gets inflamed. And with this particular type of EB, it's your insides that get inflamed more than your outsides. So oftentimes when you see stuff, when you learn about EB, you see a lot of the stuff on the surface, but there's a lot more to it than that. And that's what ultimately cost Nate his life. Was he was so inflamed on the inside that it was a matter of time. And so because of Nate's situation, they did revamp some of their processes up there in Minnesota, where now as soon as a kid shows up, it's treated like an emergency. So there's not a normal, and they knew that. They just now they know that there's the clock is ticking, so they need to move really quick. So then we got back to Ohio, got situated, and then you want to ask Nate or last Luke, but I mean,
yeah, when after all of that, I kind of learned through Bill's brother Jake that it's pretty rare actually that there is more than one family in a city, even though Cincinnati is big, that has kids that are diagnosed with EB. And so Jake found out or knew the Kissels. I guess we kind of known people that they knew our whole lives, but we got connected with Christy through email, and this was kind of even right before Nate was diagnosed with EB, that we were connected with him by email, and we're pretty hopeful people, but we were feeling really lost. And Christy's email just communicated hope from the beginning, and it was so good to hear that hope, and I think it really kind of gave us the legs that we needed to pursue the options that we found out about, and we're really thankful for being connected with them at that point. And then that grew into something even bigger, because now every year we help with the Walk for EB. And do you want to tell them what we do for the Walk for EB?
Every year we set up Nate's Ninja course, and I help test it and set it up.
Yeah.
Every year.
Yeah, we do something a little bit different every year. Have some obstacles. So Luke is our official tester, and he runs the obstacle course with his whistle the day of, and we're really, really thankful for that opportunity. We kind of feel like every year we get the chance to raise awareness, and every kid that does the obstacle course, we always give away a little ninja, because once you've done the obstacle course, you're one of Nate's ninjas. You know about EB, and you tell people about EB, and we're really thankful for that opportunity.
Yeah, so obviously there's a lot more to the story. So if you have any questions about, kind of some of the things about EB, it's each kid's different and each form of EB is different. But any questions about, areas that we saw that, need a lot of resources, or areas that, that the Kissels, have helped out on, just reach out to us. We thank you for everyone's support, especially family and a lot of our close friends. They've certainly made a difference in helping us give a purpose of, why all this happened and what we can do moving forward. So that's the one silver lining that's come out of all this, is it makes you appreciate, kind of everyone's support and what brought us back home here versus, being up there in Minnesota, kind of alone and kind of feeling like we're up against the world. So again, thanks for everyone's support. Again, if you have any questions or want to talk about it, feel free to reach out to us. Is there anything else? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.